Hey, DC fans of all ages and toy fans of all ages. Welcome to the video recounting at least the second half of the history of the Justice League Unlimited line from Mattel. I'm Scott Toyguru Knightlick. I came in at the second half of the line, and I'm going to talk about my experience with that. But first, I do have my two quick plugs. So the first one is I'm currently running some auctions to benefit charity, the same charity that Mattel gives to for Dream Halloween, which is the Children Affected by AIDS Foundation. There is a link to the eBay auction in the description. On this auction site that a buddy of mine is helping to run, you will find some hard-to-find items, some employee-only items, some never-released variants and never-released figures that I had acquired during my time in the toy industry, including this awesome JLU Deluxe Flash figure, and there's a Deluxe Superman figure that never got released, but package samples kind of popped up and made their way to me because I'm a JLU fan. My other plug is for my company, Spectra Creative LLC. We are a branding, content, and retail solution firm. If you have product and you need help getting it to market or developing it for market, we're the people to call at spectracreative.com. All right, with that, let's jump into the video. So for starters, I came in as a huge Justice League fan. I collected these figures before my time at Mattel. I was a big fan of them. I definitely have fond memories of trying to track down the original Hawkgirl figure that was short-packed and didn't show up until the second assortment. And I remember finding her at 8 a.m. at a Target in Orange County, California, and was just so excited. Alright, so the JLU line came in three basic scales. You had the miniature die-cast figures that were mostly the core team and then some repaints. You had the larger scale that was, again, basically the core team, lots of Superman and Batman. And then you had the main 4.5-inch scale, which is really what we're going to be talking about because that was the bread and butter of the line. Now, this line came in a lot of different configurations. There were 3 packs that usually paired 2 existing figures with one all-new figure, not just in the kid line, but that bled over into the collector line. There were packs that came with comic books. And there were packs that had all original characters and ones that you had never seen before. We eventually had things like 6 packs that were themed for some really obscure villains. And we even had some really cool one-off Comic-Con items that had unique structures and unique price points in order to accommodate all of the characters from the JLU world. And finally, when the line went to MattyCollector.com, we had a series of 4 packs of singles that really started expanding the universe to characters both on and off the show. And then we even did things like 2 packs of army builders and, all sorts of wacky combinations with really the goal of doing anything we could to keep the line going for the hardcore fans. So there were 3 basic eras of the retail line. There was the blue carded figures at launch. There were the purple carded figures that were kind of the middle of the line, if you will. And then there were the orange-colored figures, and this is right when I came along, when the orange figures were out. Now, the line was seeing declining sales and interest from kids, but skyrocketing interest from collectors. And that led to some really big decisions, because personally, as a fan of the show and a fan of the line, I personally knew there were just so many hundreds of characters that had the potential to be in this line. And I did not want this line to stop, because I was personally collecting it. I was very invested in it, and as the brand manager of the DC lines, I was going to do everything I could to try to keep this line going, even if the show was off the air. Now, there was a very successful pack that was done. This was the last pack done right before I came on board as brand manager. This was a Target pack with Doomsday, and it did very well. But management wanted to move on and go to new scales and new styles, and I remember at a meeting, management asked me point blank, do we keep Justice League going? And I said, yes, we do. And I think we could sell it in as a Target exclusive line because they wanted it to keep going at retail. I knew there were characters like Amanda Waller, that was basically the main villain of the first season of JLU. There were characters like Cheetah, who was needed to fulfill the Injustice Gang. There was even characters like Wonder Pig. And there were characters like Booster Gold that were not painted correctly. And this drove me crazy that the release of Booster Gold had this gold paint and didn't look anything like his show counterpart. And I was determined to make this happen and release a show-accurate Booster Gold, especially because I'm personally a huge fan of Justice League International, the comic, and Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, the characters. So the idea was to keep it going for kids and collectors by pairing characters like Batman with the Wonder Pig. So in other words, you had Batman for the kids and Wonder Pig for collectors. It was going to be this perfect hybrid product that appealed to both audiences, even if the show was off the air. Kids would still buy Batman. Again, you would pack Batman with Amanda Waller and General Eiling, so you had your collector figure in Amanda Waller, you had a military guy and Batman for kids. Again, hybrid product, hoping that this would keep it going at Target really strong. You had Batman, Superman, Flash, Wonder Woman pretty much in every pack, but it allowed us to get to characters like Galatea. Now, the thing that really let us do this was the new deal with Warner Brothers Consumer Products. They were one of the best partners I ever got to work with. They were so supportive of doing this, and it couldn't have happened without Warner Brothers Consumer Products Group support, because basically they were the final straw on what did and did not happen. It was their IP, and they controlled it. I knew we needed to get a character like the Question in the line, and we could do that now that we had access to the full DC universe of characters. I addressed that in the Wave 1 DCU Classics video. Question was going to be in Wave 1 of the Infinite Heroes line, and I knew fans were just going to have a knip if he was in this line and not in the Justice League line. The problem was we didn't have a body for him, but it occurred to us that looking deep into the tooling bank, we had this Two-Face figure from the Batman line that we called sort of the Hazmat line. It was the Hasbro Mattel blended line, and when the license transferred. And we could take this figure and use the body for our suited Question character, just with a new arm and a new head and a new coat. And that's how we did it. It was like by the skin of our teeth to get this character in there, but I knew that if he showed up in another line first, fans were not going to be happy. Another big one to talk about is, of course, the Green Lantern figure that was made just for employees. This was right before my time, but I was lucky enough to have gotten a sample from Gabe Sheffer, who knew I was a huge fan of the line. It was done as a thank you, as a bribe. A way to get it out there to the fans years later was doing a Comic-Con 3-pack right before the movie. This was kind of the closest we could get, but we made the heads swappable, so at least fans could get some Hal Jordan. Okay, Lobo, another one that fans really wanted. This was one that Warner Brothers said, Lobo cannot go at retail. They were concerned that if Lobo showed up at retail, kids were going to see him and then start reading the Lobo comic book, which was not appropriate. And essentially, this was Warner Brothers Consumer Products policy until it wasn't. So, yeah, I guess years later they changed their mind and decided that Lobo was perfectly fine. But at the moment, our solution was MattyCollector.com. By having Matty Collector and an online distribution, it provided the excuse and the rationale for being able to do Lobo for the fans with a guarantee that he was never going to show up at retail. And that was basically how we finally got the main man in the line after years and years of fans asking for him. I was really proud of the solution we came up with because, honestly, without Matty Collector, we were not going to be able to get him to retail because, well, back then, that embargo was in place. I guess they lifted it years later for that Imagine X line. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to hear more about JLU or any of the other DC lines that I worked on it during my time at Mattel or some other toy companies like Jada, Jax, Entertainment Earth, and Loot Crate, let me know in your comments below. Make sure to subscribe, and apparently you're also supposed to ring that bell. I was told that in the comments, and I'm not shouting that out enough. So subscribe, ring the bell, stand on your head, shout, shout, shout. Love you all.